Hi guys, I'm David, and if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel, Defeating Cancer. Now, don't let the name fool you, Defeating Cancer, because we're here to defeat anything that is trying to defeat you. For me, that's a cancer diagnosis. For you, it may be something else. It may be a chronic illness. It may be a disease of some kind. You may have been involved in a horrible accident and sustained some life-changing injuries. Whatever is trying to defeat you and defeat me, I want to develop a community of like-minded people that we can talk to one another. We can encourage one another. And this YouTube channel is an opportunity for me to hopefully encourage you, to give you some information, to talk to you, to give you a platform for you to tell your story if you've gone through anything that you would like to share with other people so that they can receive help. Everybody needs to know that they're not alone. And sometimes you feel alone. And that's going to be one of the topics of conversation today that I would like to have. Even though you have a cancer diagnosis, or you have a diagnosis of some type of illness, or you've been involved in some type of accident or sustained some type of injury, it changes you physically. It has a physical impact. But what I want to talk to you just for a few minutes today, if you don't mind hanging around, is the emotional impact of such things. Thanks. You know, most everybody that I have ever personally talked to that has been diagnosed with cancer or some type of long-term illness or disease, they don't really seem to have a problem talking about the physical aspects of having that diagnosis. Most people don't mind telling you about their surgeries. They don't mind telling you about the scans, the blood work, the physical therapy, all of the things that go along with the treating of that illness or that disease. But that's just one part of the fight that most people fight, the physical fight. The other fight that patients fight is an emotional fight. It's a mental fight. So not only do we fight the battlefield of the physical illness itself, but we also fight the battlefield in our minds. And if you've ever been there, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever dealt with someone or taken care of someone that has been suffering from an illness or disease, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And for me, the very first emotion that I had to deal with that was completely foreign to me was shock. I'll never forget the day that the doctor called me and I saw his number pop up on my caller ID, and I just knew that he was calling to give me good news. I knew that he was calling to tell me, hey, everything's negative. There's been a mistake some kind of way. We found out what was wrong with you, and we're going to give you some medicine, and you'll be okay in a couple of weeks. I was no way prepared for the conversation that I was about to have. And when I heard the words come out of his mouth, David, you tested positive, you've got prostate cancer, it was almost like everything come to a complete stop. And he continued to talk after that, but I didn't hear what he was saying. After those words, you've got cancer, came out of his mouth, it's like everything else come to a complete standstill. And I was in complete disbelief and shock. And the only thing I could think at that moment is, am I going to die? Am I going to die? That was quite an emotional day. So not only did I have a physical problem, but that physical problem that I was just diagnosed with immediately became an emotional problem as well that I had to deal with. So now immediately I've got two battles going on at the same time. I've got the physical battle for my life, and to fight this cancer in my body. And I've got an emotional battle that was taking place, and the first emotion that I felt was shock, complete shock and disbelief. You know, I would have to say that the next immediate emotion that I felt was a feeling of confusion. I was a little bit disoriented. I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, how am I going to tell my wife what I was just told? And the doctor had just been the bearer of bad news to me, and I knew how that felt. And now I was going to have to be the bearer of bad news and explain to my wife that her husband has got cancer. And I did not want to do that. I'm her husband. It's my responsibility to take care of her, to comfort her, to let her know that I love her. The last thing that I wanted to do was share something with her about me that was going to bring her pain or bring her anxiety or bring her fear or worry. I didn't want to be the contributor of those type of things to her, but I had to tell her. And I remember when I shared the news with her that the doctor had called me, and I was showing her the paperwork. She just broke down and cried. And seeing her in that kind of pain, it caused me pain too. And I know that if you've ever had to tell your loved one, your wife or your children or somebody that you really care about, that you've got a disease of some kind, that you've been diagnosed with cancer, and you see the look on their face like I saw on my wife's face, it's not a good feeling. So I would have to say confusion was the second emotion that I felt. You know, after me and my wife went back home and we had an opportunity to kind of process things a little bit, then I had a whole nother set of emotions, and this time it was an emotion of fear and anxiety, worry, to be specifically. The fear part was, of course, whether I was going to live or die. And I would have to say the other part of that is, okay, what do I do? There's no rule book when it comes to what are you supposed to do when you get diagnosed with cancer. There wasn't a playbook of any kind. And so how long was I going to have to be out of work? Was I going to be able to have enough money or savings to last? Where was I going to go for treatment? What was I going to do? There was a lot of questions that I just didn't have the answers to. So worry and anxiety and fear was definitely a part of that whole process. And to make it worse, the doctor told me, right after he gave me the bad news, he told me he was going on vacation. He said, I'm going on vacation, and while I'm gone, I would like for you and your wife to discuss your diagnosis and do some research on your own. Talk to some people, Google prostate cancer, Google the different types of treatments available, the different locations, treatment centers around the country, whether you want to be treated locally or whether you want to be treated someplace else. There was all of these things that he threw in my lap just as he was going on vacation. And then he said, hey, when I get back, I'll call you into my office and we can discuss not only your diagnosis, but some of the things that you've done your homework on. And maybe we can answer some questions and figure out some things together. So that was another added stress, that now it was my responsibility and my wife's responsibility to get on Google, which we probably would have done anyway, but it was a necessity And that was something that we were definitely worried about. What treatment options were there? And so I have to tell you that I did, through research and looking at the treatment options available, there was cryotherapy where they freeze part of your prostate. There were these little radiation seeds that they could implant into your prostate and hopefully kill the cancerous cells. And there was radical prostatectomy where they completely remove your prostate. And so when I went back to the doctor and I was discussing all of these treatments that we had looked up on the internet, I asked him, I said, look, Doc, what would you do if you were the one that had prostate cancer? And he told me, plain and simple, he said, if you want to live, you need to have the radical prostatectomy. You need to have your prostate removed. And I said, well, what about the cryotherapy, or what about the seeds? He said, if you want to live, you'll have the radical prostatectomy. So that answered the question for me. And I had already made up my mind that I wanted to go to Johns Hopkins Hospital up in Baltimore, and that's where we ultimately went, and I had the radical prostatectomy. And so that was quite an experience there, dealing with the fear, the worry, the anxiety. How am I going to pay my bills? Who's going to do the surgery? Where am I going to have the surgery at? What type of treatments are there? There's any number of things that you have to deal with. And if you've had a diagnosis not only of cancer, but of some type of illness, then you know what I'm talking about. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about. So I would have to say that definitely fear, worry, anxiety, all of them rolled up in a big snowball was part of the emotional roller coaster that I experienced, and I'm sure if you've been there, you have too. Another emotion that many people have told me that they have to deal with is the emotion of anger. Just being ticked off, mad, upset, and angry because they're suffering the way they are, or they see their family members suffering the way they are. Their children's in the hospital. They're being poked and prodded and stuck. They don't have any hair on their head. They're just suffering tremendously, and sometimes it just makes you mad. It makes you upset. And some people ask, why me? Why am I suffering the way I'm suffering? What did I do to deserve to have cancer? What did I do in my life to deserve to suffer the way I am, to have the disease that I have? Well, I can't answer a whole lot of philosophical questions. It takes somebody a lot smarter than me to answer those questions, but I feel very confident in this answer for what did you do to deserve cancer? You didn't do anything to deserve cancer. You haven't done anything to deserve being sick. Your children hadn't done anything to deserve being sick, or to be hospitalized, or suffer the way they do. I don't have the answers to those questions. Some people have even told me, well, I think God is mad at me. I think that I'm being punished some kind of way for something that I've done in my past. Listen, God's not mad at you. He's not upset with you, and he certainly didn't give you cancer to teach you a lesson. But I do know this, that just like anger can be a good thing, it can also be misplaced as well. So if you're suffering with an unusual and overwhelming flow of emotions, whether it's worry, stress, anxiety, fear, or anger, it may help to talk to somebody, a friend, a loved one, maybe a pastor. If nothing else, you can talk to a counselor, and maybe they can help you navigate the uncharted waters of emotions that you're not used to having, or that you can't navigate yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. And the last emotion that I want to talk about for the purposes of this video is the emotion of hope. You know, the definition of hope is the confident expectation of good. And I want to encourage you that cancer and a diagnosis of some other type of debilitating illness does not necessarily have to be the death sentence that it used to be years ago. There are millions and millions of people around the world that are receiving life-saving and life-changing treatments that are allowing them to live active and fulfilled lives. And you can be one of those people. I also want to encourage you to check out some resources that I'm putting in the description of this video that can possibly help you if you need help emotionally, if you need some resources financially, or if you need to talk to somebody about your diagnosis of cancer or some other type of debilitating disease. And do me a favor, if you've received any value at all from this video, I'm asking you to like this video, share it with somebody that you think would benefit from it, and please subscribe, because by subscribing, you give me the opportunity to grow this community and to interact more with you.